We have the pivotal SWAC West matchup this weekend. Alcorn came out victorious. I have the biggest reason that was the case, and I'm also not sure that Grambling can overcome the loss. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. Now, we'll wrap up today's episode with a look at the future of Miles Crawley. This is all about Grambling versus Alcorn. It was the biggest game of the week, the most important game of the week, and in my opinion, it didn't disappoint. I know it was a little bit more defensive than some would like, but I like defensive matchups, so I really did enjoy this. It lived up to the hype for me, so I want to look at the fact that Miles Crawley could be sharing the quarterback room or the starting quarterback role with another guy. And in my opinion, it could lead to Crawley losing his job if player number 2 comes out and performs to a certain standard. Got to keep it a little vague, but we're going to explore every single part of that in segment 3. In segment 2, we'll be looking at the chances that Grambling has to win the SWAC West. It looked a whole lot different a couple of weeks ago. We have to have a new conversation about the Grambling State Tigers. So, but in segment 1, we don't start off with the loser. We start off with the victor. That's how this goes. The victor gets the spoils, and the victor gets the conversation about them first. Alcorn won this game because they were able to stop Grambling from scoring touchdowns when they got deep into Alcorn territory. Simple and plain. Football is a matter of moments, right? You can bring up a couple of pivotal plays here, a pivotal play there. Alcorn's ability to hold Grambling to field goals, to me, is the biggest reason that the Braves came out victorious, right? The conversation shifts if we're talking about Grambling because there's reason that this game was close, but they didn't win. So we're not. Why would we have that conversation, right? Let's talk about what led to the W, and that was Grambling's ability or inability to punch in the football, right? So I want to look at the beginning of Grambling's series, right? I want to look at the beginning of Grambling's offensive game. They didn't do much in the first drive, but once you look at the beginning, or once you get past the first drive. Once you get past the first drive, you've seen Grambling kick it in. And this is where the talking point gets extremely important because that's when Alcorn started forcing field goals. Okay. We've already addressed, We've already addressed that Grambling didn't do anything on drive number 1. But now you look at Grambling in drive 2, 3, 4, and 5, 4 consecutive drives. They got down to the 24, to the 13, to the 5, and then to the 20. You notice how I keep saying they got down to numbers and not saying they got into the end zone? That's because Alcorn continuously stopped them, whether that was turnover on downs, whether that was an interception, whether that was field goals. All 3 of those things happened over the span of 4 drives. Grambling gets down to the 24, turnover on downs. Grambling gets to the 13, field goal. Grambling gets to the 5-yard line, field goal. Grambling gets to the 20, interception. That's 4 drives that you get down inside the 25. And you walk away with 6 total points. That's not acceptable if you're Grambling. That's incredible if you're Alcorn. Their ability to force turnover on downs, their ability to get interceptions, their ability to force field goals. Matter of fact, if you just want to look at it in general, 4 drives, 0 touchdowns. That right there is the reason that Alcorn won the game. You look at a game this close, if Grambling punches it in one time, right? Like, you really think about it. This is 4 separate drives. Some of these drives, they didn't even get field goals. But let's just look at the two in which they did get field goals. If Grambling punches this in one time, you're probably looking at a Grambling victory. So Alcorn's ability to force the Tigers into field goals, to force the Tigers off the field without points, is by far the most important reason that they were able to walk away with this victory. And I don't care that it wasn't in the last 30 minutes. This was the end of the first quarter to the second quarter. That is the reason that they won, guys. And even when you look at later in the game, they still got down there twice more in the second half. They didn't do too much, in my opinion, but they get deep into Alcorn territory two more times. They get a field goal and they got a touchdown. So you're looking at over total what? That's 6 drives. 6 drives inside the 25-yard line, and you walk away with a total of 16 points. That's the victory. In a game as close as this, that is the deciding factor. So I talk about how it's clutch moments, and I want to go the same way to Grambling, or excuse me, to the Alcorn offense. I thought they also had some clutch moments because they didn't do a lot offensively. In my opinion, the first 55 minutes, the first 57 minutes, however it was until the last Alcorn drive, that first part of the game, the majority of the game, let's just say it that way. The majority of the game, I don't believe that Alcorn played winning offense. Xzavier Vaughn, he had a 73-yard touchdown pass. He ended with 149 passing yards. Jacorian Sewell had a 63-yard touchdown run. He ended with 102 rushing yards. You're looking at the two biggest players, the two most important players to Alcorn's offense, and pretty much half of their totals in their respective. Sewell also, Vaughn also had a some rushing yards, but it wasn't a lot. It was like 15. But the mass majority of their yardage came on one play apiece. Grambling did their job. They have a propensity for explosive plays that really does concern me, but we'll get to that at a different time. They didn't play great. Alcorn did not play great, in my opinion, offensively. But that last drive, there was a play in particular. They had, I think it might have been a wishbone, something like that. But like you got the quarterback, a diamond formation, I believe it's called, right? You had the quarterback, you had a running back behind him, and then you had 2 offensive linemen right next. You had 2 offensive linemen flanking the quarterback as if they were fullbacks, and they said, okay, we're going to get huge, man. I think I actually might have been defensive linemen, but they were linemen, dude. They were big folks. That's the point. We want you to run at the gap and push whoever's in the way out of the way. That was a great play design. When you're looking at everything, I did not think that Alcorn had a great day. It was explosive play 1, explosive play 2, and outside of that, very inconsistent. I didn't love everything that was going on. One thing I did love was that call on the last drive to put 2 linemen next to the quarterback in the backfield and say, we're going to run the football behind you. Let these big guys get a full head of steam. That was a pivotal moment in the game, and that was one of the reasons they were able to extend the drive. Then I look at Grambling not making the clutch play. Grambling did not make the clutch play at the end of the game in which Xzavier Vaughn was essentially able to ice it and allow the field goal to be the last play. They came with a blitz. Both your linebackers blitzed off the edge, and that left the middle of the field wide open. I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to push them back, get a harder field goal, and it looked like those guys were close. I don't know how close they were because different angles. I wasn't sure if Vaughn was able to kind of skirt out before the linebackers got there, but I'll say this. Xzavier Vaughn wasn't much of a running threat because Andrew Jones was there. He was doing a phenomenal job. I remember 2 runs by Xzavier Vaughn. One, Jones was not in the game. The other, Jones was blitzing off the edge. The middle of the field was open. While I understand the decision to want to heat up Vaughn, to want to try to get to Vaughn, sack him so that you can now make it a harder field goal. I get it. You can't be as reckless to blitz a running quarterback with your best contained player coming off the edge with no one else in the middle. I feel like you were asking for them to go ahead and complete that. It was very close, but it was way too risky, and it was one of those things that it had to work out. It didn't. That's how I look at a lot of decisions. There's decisions that are good decisions, even if they don't work. There's decisions that are bad decisions, and they have to work in order for us to not talk about it. And there's the decisions that are kind of in the middle, right? Like That's typically how it goes. But for most people, we just looking at, did it work or no? Bad decision. No, that was a big gamble. And when you fail on a big gamble, it becomes an unnecessary risk. As you push forward, man, Grambling, the way I talked about Grambling a couple of weeks ago versus where Grambling is now is a drastic difference. And I want to break down that difference as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is the only place that I would tell you to go if you're trying to get hired fast, right? Like I was just on LinkedIn making my connections, and sometimes it's about networking, right? Sometimes it's about networking. I was just on LinkedIn not that long ago, earlier today, while I was on the road. I was on LinkedIn. I was not driving. Just so we are clear. But anyway, the point is you have 86% of small businesses that are able to find LinkedIn or go on LinkedIn and find the appropriate and right person for their job in the first 24 hours. There's a reason why a lot of businesses go to LinkedIn and don't go anywhere else. So much so that if they don't have anybody that day, they're like, oh, we'll find them next time. I don't need to go anywhere else. Do you want to be in that number? Do you want to be in that person? Maybe you're a small business owner. You want to find the right person. Maybe you're someone looking to be employed. Do you want to be in that number of people who are on LinkedIn? All you have to do is go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. If you're a small business owner, use the code, or you can go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege and post your job for free. Reach out to the 800 million people who are on LinkedIn on a daily basis. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Also, remember, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College. Now, for $20 off your first purchase. This is what I'm saying. Grambling is in a different place than they were a couple of weeks ago. Grambling went from leading the pack to needing a lot of help to get back to the front. I would say that they're in a better place, but A, they're not. And B, I'm not sure that their season is completely dead, right? I was going to say that and be a little funny, but I don't know if it's completely dead. I don't. My thing about Alcorn is I don't want to say that this is their first test because UAPB just went out there and knocked off Prairie View. That makes the Pine Bluff victory look a little bit better for Alcorn, right? But Alcorn still hasn't played PV. Alcorn still hasn't played Texas Southern for what it's worth. Alcorn still hasn't played Southern University, right? So Texas Southern and Southern. I hate when I say those back to back. They still haven't played Jackson State. I'm just rattling them off, and I'm not sure who else they have to play in the East off the top of my head. So you're looking at 4. Yeah, you're looking at 4 games. Like, those are still tough matchups, and Alcorn could still lose. But the problem is Grambling has put themselves in a position that I talked about PV about just 2 weeks ago. Grambling, talk about freezing cold takes. I said a couple of weeks ago that the SWAC West runs through the Tigers, Grambling and Texas Southern. Oh, my God. I thought I was going to be going for a big-time matchup October 26th. It doesn't feel like that anymore. I don't have the confidence that I once had in either one of these Tigers. The Texas Southern Tigers out here choking. They're here choking. I don't know if I'm going to talk about this. I'm upset. Like my boy Ed Reed said, don't ask him all right. No, I'm not all right. Like, that's how I feel. Of course I'm not. Like, this is not fair. I may go on my tangent tomorrow about Texas Southern choking. This is about Grambling. So TSU is 1-2. Grambling is 0-2 in the conference. This matters because you know who Grambling lost to? Grambling lost to Prairie View A&M, and they lost to Alcorn. TSU lost to Jackson State. At least that's the SWAC East team, but then they come back and they lose to Southern. I said, and I don't feel bad for it, for the record. Like, I stand on what I said when I said it. I just happen to be wrong in hindsight. But it's more so about Grambling. Like, I really stand on what I said about Grambling. TSU, I feel a bit premature, and I was told that immediately in that Jackson State game. Grambling looked so good, and I still don't think they're a bad team. That's the thing. It's not like I'm looking at the quality of team. From the time in which I said that they lead the pack, and the time in which I said that the SWAC West runs through the Tigers, Grambling has not plummeted as a team, but Grambling has plummeted in the standings to a point where I don't care how good they are. They may have dug themselves too deep of a hole for them to even overcome. Do I still think Grambling is a solid team? Yes, I do. But I do have a little bit of questions about them. I have a little bit of a question about Grambling in a couple of different categories. One of which is the quarterback position that we'll talk about in segment 3. That's a big question for me. When it comes to Grambling, a big question for me is what's happening at quarterback. But then you also look at defense. Defensively, they're too prone to big plays. As good as Grambling is, as elite as Grambling is when it comes to forcing turnovers, right? I know people will say, oh man, they just gave it to him. Everybody isn't giving it to Grambling. Everybody isn't just giving it up, okay? Like Grambling is getting these are takeaways. They're not all giveaways. You don't keep doing this over and over and over. Brendan Barley doesn't continuously get interceptions at the linebacker spot because people just giving it to him. I like Grambling. I don't like him that much. I'm pretty sure nobody they're playing against likes him that much. To just say, hey, we're going to go ahead and give you this. We got to stop doing that. You feel like that because it's your team. Oh, we don't usually play like that. We just gave it up. That's all on us. It ain't all on everybody. Grambling got some turnovers this game too. This game is only close because Grambling's defense forced turnovers. However, Grambling, they just let up 2 big plays. And it's kind of aggravating because it makes me confused about how to feel about Grambling. On one side, I see the team that's elite at taking the ball away. On the other side, I see the team that is absolutely poor when it comes to stopping big plays, whether that's on the ground or whether that's over the top in the passing game. Those 2 things should not coexist in a defense, and when they do, I become conflicted. Because if you take out the turnovers, if you take out the turnovers and you take out the explosive plays, you're looking at a solid defense. But you can't take both of them away because you want to say, oh, you can't take turnovers. That's their best quality. Okay. Well, I can't take their worst quality. I can't do that. Difficult for me. Very, very difficult for me. I don't love what I've seen from the quarterback position. I don't love what I've seen from the running back position. Right. I like Bull Hargrove. I like Trey Bradford. I like they had a new quarterback, a new running back, 24, who came in the game this week. I think it was Talbert. I like them talent-wise, but I don't feel like they're consistently producing enough. I don't throughout the game and just as time goes on, like that Jackson State game, that was good, but then PV, this game here, right? Like, and sometimes I go and I look at the numbers and it looks a certain way, but I remember how it feels. I may not remember exact play calls, but a lot of times, if you pay enough attention to a game, it's rare where a team or where a player has a good game and you feel like they had a meh game. It's rare. So there's times when a player may have a good game and you just didn't notice whether or not they had a good game or a bad game. But if you feel like they were meh, or I'll speak for me. If I feel like they were meh, I'm trusting my gut, right? Because numbers lie. We got to stop saying numbers don't lie. Numbers lie, okay? Like, look, numbers lie. Because you take out the long run, you may not have a great yards per carry. It's like you weren't that efficient. You had a big play that carried you throughout the day. I kind of laid that out when it came to Sewell's long touchdown run. He didn't have a lot of carries, but still. There was many drives. Like that last drive or one of the touchdown drive. Grambling looked good. There's been these drives in the PV game. This drive in the who they just played, Alcorn game. There's drives in these 2 games where I'm like, man, Miles Crawley looks like everything I thought he could be. There's games where I look at there's drives within this game when I look at Miles Crawley in the Grambling offense, and I'm like, man, that's the preseason SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. That's the team that I said the SWAC West goes through. There's times when I look at their offense and it happens, but over the last 2 weeks, that's been extremely inconsistent. I haven't been able to say that about them in totality. I've been able to say that in them for them in moments, but not throughout the whole game. Because when as much as you, or as little as you have, honestly, you have these plays, the majority of the game, it feels like either Miles Crawley isn't seeing the field or nobody's open, or like, I don't know what it is. But the offense does not flow consistently. They flow at times, and that's a problem. But now you look at where they are standing wise. Grambling has 2 losses to 2 SWAC West teams. This is exactly where I had PV a week ago, 2 weeks ago. This is exactly where I had PV leading into the game against Grambling, but then PV beat Grambling. And now here we are today because Grambling has 2 SWAC West victories. You can't end a 3-way tie with Grambling, PV, and Alcorn if you're the Tigers. It does not work for you. You have to beat Southern. You have to beat Texas Southern. I think that you have to be essentially perfect from here on out because Grambling has 2 SWAC losses, 2 SWAC West losses at that. Can you afford a third? I don't think so. I'm about to write up obituaries for PV, and they just suffered their 3rd SWAC West loss. So you can better believe that I'm going to be talking about Grambling, and I'm putting them under the microscope. Ooh, under the microscope tomorrow. I was looking for segment number 3. Under the microscope tomorrow. I'm excited, y'all. Y'all have to understand I love doing under the microscope. One person who's under the microscope is Miles Crawley. 2 quarterback system seem like it's on the way. To me, that leads to Crawley losing his job if QB2 ends up looking like a QB1. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, and Game Time is the official ticketing sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, I just came off the road. I just got back. So I'm like, wasn't a great experience, but it was surely a great price with some great seats, and I was able to get that off of Game Time. The experience just wasn't great because my team lost the way that they lost, but I surely had a good seat to see it. My favorite part, I feel like that accent kind of came out, twang came out. That my favorite part about Game Time is the fact that I toggle on all-in pricing because I hate getting those hidden fees. They tell you that a ticket is $30 and then you come in after all the fees is like it's 50. Tell me what it is from the jump, and Game Time does that for me. So go ahead and download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to end this talking about the future of Miles Crawley. Mickey Joseph made some comments lately that has me really concerned about the future of Miles Crawley. I'm attempting to remove how I personally feel, how I would personally handle a situation. It's difficult for me, but I'm trying. There's going to be a little bit of it. There's going to be a little bit of how I handle it, but I don't know Mickey Joseph's approach. So I don't want to put words in his mouth. I'm being very clear. Okay. I want to be very clear. He did not say that Miles Crawley is on the brink of losing his job. What he did say is they're thinking about going to a 2 quarterback system. I don't like 2 quarterback systems. To me, that doesn't work. If I'm going to a 2 quarterback system, I'm trying to figure out who is going to be my 1 quarterback system. And for Miles Crawley, I don't like the optics of it. If Ashton Fry can pass the ball at all, I think he could replace Miles Crawley. I do, because of the comments based off the comments of Mickey Joseph, right? Like I want to be very clear. This is me infusing a little bit of my opinion into the comments. However, all I'm saying is that I don't like 2 quarterback systems, and that I would try to make a 1 quarterback system. That's the only part. Miles Crawley, according to Mickey Joseph, gets jittery in the pocket, and he thought about taking him out in the last game because he gets hit, right? And when he starts to get hit, he gets jittery in the pocket. What are we talking about here? I have put my personal preference to the side. Let's not talk about it. Let's get into the 2 quarterback system, right? Putting how I feel about 2 quarterback systems aside, if Ashton Fry provides the running element, if he can pass the ball, why not make him the quarterback, right? Like if your thing is you thought about taking out Miles Crawley because he starts to get jittery in the pocket, that is a quote. He starts to get jittery in the pocket. Well, at that point, why not just look at a quarterback change? That's my question. If Ashton Fry can pass the ball at all and he gives you that running back or that running aspect, well, Shouldn't he just be your quarterback? I don't know. Maybe I'm oversimplifying things. But this is the quote. He said, I want to give you the exact quote. I thought about taking him out. Usually thought about taking him out when he's not being protected. He talked about it being the hits, not the sacks, but the hits that's getting to him. And he wanted to get a quarterback run aspect in. This is Mickey Joseph talking, right? I gave that first part about being protected. If you have to put a quarterback in, a different quarterback in, because your real starting quarterback isn't being protected well, obviously you feel like you can't improve the blocking. Okay, cool. Why don't you just ask your starter to mitigate the pressure better, to handle the pressure better? Because I'm going to tell you this right now, a quarterback that's jittery in the pocket is not a quarterback that I want. A quarterback that is uncomfortable in the pocket leads to a coach who is uncomfortable on the sideline, and a coach who is uncomfortable on the sideline can lead to a coach making uncomfortable decisions, such as benching your preseason SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. Is that what he said he's going to do? No. He said he's going to lessen the workload. He said he's going to go here. And I don't even like that, because now when Fry's in, I know he's going to run. But maybe as an offensive coordinator, Eric Dooley says, oh, we know they know we're going to run with him. Let's throw it. If I feel good Ashton Fry throwing, why do I need Miles Crawley? If I feel like I need a quarterback who can mitigate the pressure, a quarterback who can run the ball to handle some of the pressure that I'm allowing, what is the value in Miles Crawley? I think Crawley is a good quarterback. I think he's a solid quarterback. But if I have to remove him for a problem that clearly isn't getting better, I need to know where is the value. I do not like two quarterback systems. That's a big reason on why I'm asking this question, but I think it's real. When you go two quarterback system, you're bringing predictability into the offense. Anytime I see Ashton Fry, I know he's running. That's not fair to Grambling. It's going to make it very difficult. It's going to make it very predictable. And now you just have to be better than somebody who knows what's coming. You don't want that. Even if you feel like you're better, you don't want to be like, oh, I have to outplay someone who knows it's coming. That's just not how football works. Okay. But I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to look at UAPB versus Prairie View A&M, because that was a big time victory for UAPB, and it happening on a Friday night made it even bigger. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.